Evening. How's everybody?
Good.
Staying dry?
Yes.
Staying warm?
Somewhat.
Are we supposed to get some snow?
This weekend.
Like an inch of snow. Tonight? Tomorrow night?
Friday night.
Oh, Friday night. It's not even technically winter time, is it? Like 21st or something? Man, unbelievable. It's like we live in the mountains or something. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, guess what book we're in? I was seriously thinking James for a moment. But you're right, it's 1 Peter. Need a book? Okay. Anybody else need a book? Anybody else missing a book? Okay. It's $50 if you lose it. Tim. All right, 1 Peter. So we're not far into it. We're on, we read 3, 4, and 5. And we talked about, really verse 3, we ended talking about being born again or being begotten to a lively hope, right? Remember talking about that? Okay. Born again to a lively hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. So the resurrection is pretty important. That's what our lively hope is built on. We should probably know too, and we'll get there eventually in chapter 3. Another thing that Peter attaches to the resurrection is our baptism, the 1 Peter 3:21. And then in verse 4, look at all these descriptive words of heaven. It's called an inheritance. It's called incorruptible, which means what? So someone tells you that heaven is going to be incorruptible, and you're like, oh yeah, that means
No spoil.
it doesn't spoil. Yeah. And what? Pure?
Perfection.
Yeah, perfection. Yeah, okay. All right. Incorruptible. It's and undefiled. What's the difference between incorruptible and undefiled? Can you? What do you think?
Purity. Undefiled would be pure.
Undefiled would be more on the pure side of things, and then incorruptible would be
Innocent.
It never deteriorate. Yeah, mine says imperishable,
Imper-
that which will never die.
imperishable, that which will never die. Yeah.
Chuck, I think one of them means future tense and one of them means past tense.
So what? Say that again.
Okay, what's the two words you're talking about?
Incorruptible and
Undefiled.
undefiled. Yeah.
Undefiled means it hasn't been corrupted.
Okay. Yeah.
It kind of means in the past tense after present time. And the other would mean in the future.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. So God's keeping it pure and untouched, undefiled for us, and it's always going to be that way.
Covers eternity.
Yeah, covers through eternity. And then it says it does not fade away, right? That's another thing. And then reserved in heaven for you. It's for us. It's reserved for you, Christian. That's what it's there for. And then look at verse 5. It says, who are kept, you, Christian, who are kept by the power of God through faith for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. Now I can imagine someone saying, that kind of sounds like we are kept by God's power. And if we're kept by God's power, that means we're always going to be kept no matter what we do. Can you see somebody maybe reading that out of there?
Out of context, yeah.
Reading it out of context. Well, what's a couple of key words there? If I were to tell you, if I were to come up to you and say, see, you can't lose. You're always going to be kept. You can't lose heaven.
Faith for
You word
salvation.
to be through.
Okay, what?
You word to be through faith.
Through faith. All right, that's kind of what Austin said here too. Through faith. So whose faith is it? God's faith? That's gotta be our faith, right? So that, to me, that kind of puts the responsibility upon my shoulders, upon our shoulders, right? Kept through, it's gotta be our faith, and so what if I cast my faith aside then? Am I still gonna be kept by God's power? What? No, right? That wouldn't make any sense from that verse.
And by faith, you're following the right footsteps too. Because if you didn't have faith, you wouldn't be following the Bible.
Sure, yeah, that's right. And we just read in James, it's probably on the same page in your Bible where it says you can wander from the truth, right? James 5:19. So, what if I wander from the truth? And what if I throw my faith away? And, well, I guess God's not going to force me to stay where I don't want to stay, right? Isn't that right? And so God's keeping, can we say that God's keeping is dependent upon our staying? As in that it's our choice, our desire to stay? Yeah. If God keeps us no matter what, then we've lost some free will there. He keeps us no matter what we do. And we just can't forget, we mentioned that our election, right? We talked a lot about election last time. Verse number 2, Christians are called the elect. And we said that it's not passive. Our election is not passive, right? And our salvation, a saving faith, is not passive either. And we can't forget that we just read about obedience in verse number 2, and that can't be God's obedience. That's got to be our obedience. So whatever verse 5 means, it's got to harmonize with at least verse number 2 and the obedience there, right? Yeah. That sounds like good Bible study, proper Bible study. What about this last time? What's verse 5? What do you think that is? For salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time.
That you're ready.
What do you think that's referring to?
If you're Christian, you're ready for the return.
When Christ returns, we'll have our salvation.
Christ's return? Yeah, I didn't think. What else could it be if it's not Christ's return, right? And Christians live, I think it's right to say that Christians live ready to die, right? Because they know that, verse number 4, we got an inheritance incorruptible, undefiled, does not fade away, reserved in heaven for us. We live ready to die. And we ought to be living like, and I know this is kind of what every preacher says this 1,000 times probably, it becomes cliche, but you never know when you're going to go, that kind of thing. Well, and Christ could come at any moment. And as cliche that you will allow it to get cliche in your head or not, but it's still true, and it was true for these Christians that Peter was writing to. Christ could come at any moment, and that's not just a thing that we ought to be believing and saying because it keeps us on our toes, and we got to be, we ought not to be scared that what if Christ comes right in the next 5 minutes? Like, if you're prepared to go, then that you're like, okay, well, great, wonderful. If he comes, he comes. If it's not, I'm just going to keep on plugging away. So this last time that's the time that Peter is talking about. Think about it. Christ is no further away. His coming is no further away from us than it was for Peter and the people who he was writing to, in the sense that it could come at any moment. Does that make sense? If it could come for any moment for them, then it could be right around the corner. It could be. And so he hasn't come yet. So the same is true for us. He could come at any moment. Is that still true? Yep. And so could it be right around the corner? However you want to say it. Yeah. The same for them, the same for us. Yeah. You just don't know when Christ is coming, right? Treat every day as if this is your last, and you'll live a pretty good life, I think. Any comments? Questions? All right, let's read 6 through 9. In this you greatly rejoice. So in this, 3, 4, and 5, In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by various trials, that the genuineness of your faith, being much more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ, whom having not seen, you love. Though now you do not see him, yet believing, you rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory, receiving the end of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Wow, sounds like a lot in that verse. It's really packed full. So in this, because the Christian's life was one of a living hope or a lively hope, verse number 3, and which was connected to their faith in him and their faith in God and their obedience to him, they were on their way to heaven, verse 4, a wonderful place. And should Christ return if the last time for them was right around the corner, then should that happen, then they were going to kind of have their eternal salvation realized, like they're going to actually see it with their own eyes, you know. And so in all of that, he says they were rejoicing greatly. They were just happy. And they could rejoice and be happy, be joyful, despite the fact that they were going through some trials and they were going through some suffering, whatever it may have been. And they could rejoice despite the fact that their suffering was very likely brought because of them being Christians, because of their faith, because of the stance that they were taking, because of the things that they were saying, because of the way that they were living. They could still rejoice about it. And you notice it says a little while. I get the feeling maybe some folks think that the Christian life is when they read through the Bible or whatever, and they hear things like 2 Timothy 3:12, and they where all who desire to live godly in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. And I've said that, I've used that verse a lot, and I think it has a lot of meaning for us in a lot of different ways. But we don't want anybody to get the message that, well, the Christian life is supposed to be one very long, painful experience. It's supposed to, life is supposed to be tortured. And if you're not tortured as a Christian, then, well, just heaven's not going to be as great as it could be, whatever. It's not really the case. And I hope no one thinks that. This life is supposed to be, well, John 10:10, Jesus says something like that they may have life and have it more abundantly. And I think that's talking about like a joyful life here on this earth, like actually enjoy life, and then life abundantly would be the one that's to come. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, a Christian's life should be as happy as it could be. I mean, we're going to have trials and setbacks, but our hope is in heaven. We see a brighter day coming, no matter what we're going through. We should rejoice even if we're struggling here on earth.
Yeah.
We're being beat or persecuted for Christ, whatever. We should rejoice because we know it's going to end. We're going to have that salvation.
Right, that's right.
So Christians should be happy people around.
We should be the happiest people on the planet. Yeah, there ain't no doubt about that. But he says that though for a little while, if need be, you've been grieved by various trials. So Peter's saying, you know, trials are going to come and trials are going to go. You're going to have good times and where nothing's going on, and then sometimes it's going to be rough. But we can be sure that it's going to come. It's definitely going to come, right? And like that's 2 Timothy 3:12. If you're being faithful, it's going to come. Now, why is that? Anybody want to explain why? Why is suffering going to come? Especially for, not just we live in the world. Don't think general suffering, but no, because you're a Christian. Suffering, I mean, the Bible teaches suffering is going to come your way because of that. So why do you think that is? And can you think of anything in the Bible that might point to something like that? Do what now?
To make you more faithful, but it believe that much harder.
Okay, well, yeah. Your trials are definitely going to increase your faith. And he actually starts talking about this, in verse 7. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, the devil's going to be working hard upon you.
Yeah, so we have an adversary.
Yeah, that's going to be working against
The devil, that's in First Peter as well, right? Chapter 5. And, yeah, he's gonna be working harder. Hey, why would he work harder on Christians than he would on the rest of the world?
He's already got us.
He got everybody else. Got them under his thumb. He doesn't have you. Hopefully. You would know. Hopefully he doesn't have you.
On the TV, there was this preacher was advertising this book, and he goes, we're all waiting for that day to come where that new world will be in. It's not heaven, but it's going to be the new world that we're going to live in.
Oh.
You know, through the tribulation.
What? That's a commercial?
Yeah, well, it's a commercial. It is.
Huh.
Yeah.
What you watching?
What
What channel is that?
It's Fox.
Oh. Yeah, they were pretty good about running religious stuff.
Yeah, they're
A new world, huh? Wow, that's amazing.
when the tribulation was over, before the tribulation was over, and there'll be no more sickness or no more pain, but only few deaths.
Oh, yeah. Why just a few? Why there's zero? Yeah, why there's,
If you're no sickness and no pain, why would they be dead?
yeah. There's just gonna be a few. Just kind of throw that in there, like, just in case we're wrong.
Let's not
Get taken
contradict
out.
ourselves at all.
Who's pushing that book? Franklin Graham?
No, he's one of them.
He's on there though. But
Yeah.
it's somebody else, huh? Huh.
Daniel somebody.
Oh, okay.
Franklin Graham's was have you say the prayer and then call in.
Yeah, I've seen those. When I go to my mom's always got Fox on for some reason.
They got this one guy, that miracle water, you sprinkle it on your checkbook, you'll have money.
Oh, what? Is that what he says? He says sprinkle on your checkbook.
Sprinkle on your checkbook and on
Do you
your
have
bill,
some?
and on your bill.
And they get a check in the mail for $15,000.
Yeah, that's probably holier than any water they got. Wow, yeah.
The devil's so deceiving, I mean, he
Yeah, imagine the kind of trouble. I don't know. That's it's sad that people get wrapped up in that kind of stuff, and you know that people do because they wouldn't keep running the ads, especially for the miracle water stuff. I remember when I was younger, I'd get stuff in the mail like prayer towels or something. You get this little cloth or prayer cloth. You ever got that in the mail?
Oh, yeah.
And like you send stuff back for it. Like they'll send it like preemptively send you the thing, and then you're like, I don't know if something happens and you get triggered to the prayer cloth, that's gonna cause you to send money to whoever sent the prayer cloth.
Oh, it don't work until you send money in.
yeah, I don't remember. That's such a long time ago. I wasn't even really religious then, but not sure I didn't buy into it. But yeah, so there's a passage in 1 John 3, and Jesus talks about this too, and I'll take you there in John 15, where I'll tell you what. Well, John gives us an idea, and he uses a specific example with Cain and Abel. Y'all might remember reading this or me talking about it. Why are you going to suffer? Why, especially Christians? And he gives the example of Cain and Abel, and he tells us to like love one another and don't love each other like Cain did, because he didn't love his brother at all. He actually murdered him. And it says, 1 John 3:12 and 13. He says, here's why Cain murdered Abel, was because Cain's works were evil. And we think, and now to stop there, we think, well, that's why anybody does anything like that, because their works are evil. They're just evil people. But then he says, and what? Is anybody there? You see it? And Abel's or his brothers was what? You see it? Righteous. All right, so whatever happened between Cain and Abel had something to do not only with Cain's evilness, but Abel's righteousness. And so and the idea is that suffering or bad things, and hopefully not murder, but suffering, bad things happen in part, at least, because of your righteousness, because of your faithfulness, because you are a Christian. And the very next verse says what, Diane? What the very in 1 John 3, 13?
Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hate you.
And he says, so marvel not that the world hates you, Because if you're living like Abel, then the people living like Cain, they ain't gonna like you very much. And you probably feel a little bit of it. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And Jesus says something, he doesn't use Cain and Abel, but he gives something similar in John 15, where he says, if the world hates you, and the idea is like they're going to, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you, basically, would love its own. Oh, they would love you. They would wrap their arms around you. If you were of the world, yet because you are not of the world, because you follow Christ, you say you follow me. But I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. That's why.
What verse are you reading?
John 15, 18 and 19. All right, well, so this is what comes with following Jesus, huh? Yep. Yeah. That's why it's called a sacrifice. In part. And then verse 25, to end the passage, Jesus says, but this happened that the word might be fulfilled, which is written in the law. They hated me without a cause. Without a cause. I mean, you're not even doing anything wrong. But in the world's eyes, you are. So that's the why. But back to 1 Peter, God has not set in stone like this, like when you come up out of the waters of baptism, you are a child of God now, you belong to the body of Christ, and it's not set in stone that every day of your life is going to be miserable. This is not. You shouldn't come out thinking, like, oh, what's going to happen to me now? I mean, I think you're right when the devil, our adversary is very real, and it's a real thing, and he wants us back. And yeah, you might get tried, and you might get tested, and you know you're going to go through some stuff that's going to test your faith really badly. But you shouldn't come up out of the waters of baptism thinking that who's going to like throw something at me, or who's going to steal something from me, or what bad thing is going to happen that is going to cause, that shouldn't be like that.
Well, if I've got the whole armor of God on, I won't worry about it.
That's right, and that's yes. And that's why important, like new Christians gotta, I don't want to get off too much on this, but it's so important to be with the church and to be studying, to be reading, to be praying, to be like really just you gotta be all in, or when problems do come, it's all about preparation, right? And you're not prepping just for Jesus coming back. Be ready to go. But what you do need to, we gotta be prepared. But it's prepping for anything in life. You are preparing yourself to deal with whatever it might be in your life. And the church and the Bible helps us do that. Go ahead, brother.
We prepare ourselves for the day ahead.
Yeah. Because you don't know what tomorrow will bring, right?
You know that.
That's James.
They wake up everything I got for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the very nature, God hasn't set it in stone, but you know what? The very nature of Christian living I don't know if the word demands is right, but the nature of Christian living demands that suffering will come in some form or fashion. And in part, it's because, let's see, where's that verse? The whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Where is that? Anyways, the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one, and that's in 1 John somewhere, I think.
You can read that one if you want to. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, where's the verse? The whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. If you find it, that's not. Tammy, go ahead.
So you just said something, Robin had mentioned, Satan and our adversary. And he said, yeah, the devil wants you back. And I just never really thought of it like that before, I was baptized and I gave my life over to God.
Yeah.
I never thought that Satan had me, but he did. And so when you said that, Satan wants you back, that was just really profound to me because I just never thought of it like that.
Yeah, it kind of hurts. and I've talked about this before, like I know really, really, really good people. And let's say, and I know you before you're Christian, but you know, I like to think the best about everybody. So you're probably a really, really, really good person, right? And we all know really, really, really good people.
I wasn't
Morally,
that good.
morally, huh?
I wasn't that good.
Okay, well,
So Satan did have me, but I didn't think about it. I didn't, until you said that, I
yeah,
never thought.
yeah. It's
I mean, I was kind and loving and all that.
well, sure, yeah. And so well, we
I
all
didn't
know
do
that.
bad things.
Yeah. Well, we all know that really good, morally sound people that just haven't obeyed the gospel. If you haven't obeyed the gospel, your sins are washed away. Your sins are not washed away, and you're lost. And so, Satan's got you.
Yeah, I just never.
You know?
Yeah, that was just really profound when you said that. Satan wants you back. Because I hate to think that he had me once.
Yeah, I know.
That makes me sad.
It's like dirty.
Yeah.
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 And you hate that, and you should hate it. Yeah, because if you hate that, the idea that you don't ever want to go back to that, someone having that kind of power over you, being a master over you, you're a slave to that kind of life and that kind of entity. Yeah, man, makes us want to stay right where we are,
Steadfast.
Austin.
5:19.
Oh, 1 John 5:19. That's right. The whole world lies in this way with you. Thank you. Oh, we know that we are of God, and the whole world lies this way with you. So that's why it happens. That's why it comes. And so instead of sadness and depression and all this grieving and just miserable living because of suffering, and unfortunately, that's that's a life you can choose, and people choose that. They choose to be miserable because of things happening to them. They don't choose the things happening to them a lot of the times, but things happen and they choose to be miserable. And a lot of times maybe it's because they don't have a really good concept of God and scriptures and whatnot. But these Christians, at least, were, instead of doing that, they were rejoicing. And Peter makes note of it. Now, so that was verse 6. Let's get verse 7. So you grieve by the various trials, and here's what's connected to the various trials: the genuineness of your faith, much more precious than gold that perishes, tested by fire, may be found to praise, honor, and glory, the revelation of Jesus Christ. So this, or you might see in the King James, you see instead of tested, or no, that the genuineness of your faith, you might see the trial of your faith, right? Something like that, or the proof, the proof of your faith. So it's being tested to prove how genuine, how strong your faith is. And when you get a comparison of faith and gold, comparison of faith and then comparison of gold. This Sunday morning, hopefully we'll be comparing wisdom and gold, at least for a part of it. But here is faith and gold, and he says both of them are precious, just in their own different way, right? Both of them are precious, precious as in valuable and costly, loved, I guess. And then both of them are tested by fire, just obviously very different. Like test gold by fire physically, through the whatever you call it, is it a crucible or something like that. And then the other one, our faith is tested spiritually. And Peter's picking up on some very familiar Old Testament language. If y'all have read through the Old Testament, then you're going to know that this kind of thing is brought up where a testing by fire is connected to any kind of metals or ores or anything like that. The proverb, Psalms talks about it, Proverbs talk about it, Isaiah talks about it, and y'all might remember, well, not too long ago, I think it's Isaiah 48 talks about it, Ezekiel talks about it, Jeremiah talks about it, and then the last two books of the Bible, you find it in Zechariah, and you find it in Malachi. It's about this idea of, and it might be scattered more in the Old Testament too, but the idea of being tried by fire. And it's always this connection that they know really well of, smelting their ores and the thing, right? All the impurities rise to the top and they scrape off the top, and then what's left is the stuff that you want. Well, that's your faith. What you want is the best of the best. And trials will get your faith to that. Well, you might have some impurities in there. Like if the gold could talk, it'd be screaming, right? But boy, once it's over with, what's left, all the impurity's been scraped away, and what's left is, that strong, pure metal or gold. So trials are either going to, trials can either make your faith stronger or it's going to expose your weak faith. Isn't that right? I'm supposed to expose just how weak your faith is. And dare I bring up again the COVID pandemic of what happened there with people's faith. It just like washed over the church. And I'm sure we're not special in that way. That it happened. I'm sure it happened to a lot. I know it happened to in a lot of places. Washed over the church, and like only a few, like when the floods came, when the storm came, there's some Christmas tree farms, down there by what's it called? I think it's down Neva, and so all these trees are like bent over like this. You've read by, you've seen that, right? Where all the trees are like, and you can tell exactly where the things are flowing, and some of the little Christmas trees or whatever popped up, whatever. And so some of those survived, but not all of them. And they might be beaten up a little bit, but they survived it. And it's like, and so that's what COVID kind of washed over, and then just uprooted some people like that. Boom. And they're gone. And so that trial exposed weak faith. And perhaps the COVID pandemic made some people stronger than ever. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, some congregations still don't have evening service Sundays. They got so used to, not having service on Sunday evening.
Yeah, no, I can think of one right now. A friend of ours goes to.
Yep.
And
There's
still
several.
have evening service anymore.
Yeah, it's just not.
So it's not that important. Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
drive
it's
me
wild.
crazy. That would bother me.
Well, yeah, it should. Yeah, it should. So this comparison between faith and gold, one's they're both precious. They both can be tested, but only faith, not gold. Only faith is connected with praise and honor and glory, not the gold. Praise, honor, and glory that matters. All right. I suppose from just saying wealth overall and pretty privileged and having things, then I guess people are going to honor you in some way or whatever. But the kind that matters, only faith is connected to. Gold is connected with this world. That's why I said it's more precious than gold that perishes, because that belongs to the world. But faith is not ever, your faith is not ever to be connected to this world.
That's one thing I think you're forgetting about. But when you talk about gold being heated by fire,
Yeah.
it changed. Gold changed. Your faith didn't change when it was tested by fire. Your faith did not change. It stayed exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Gold did not. It turned into a liquid. So that's showing that the faith is stronger than this basic mineral that's going to get back hard again. But it turned to something. It turned liquid when faith stood firm.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You can take the comparison that far and make a point out of it. Yeah. So
Look at Job.
yeah, look at Job.
Look what his life was, but he still didn't give up.
No.
He still didn't give up believing in the Lord.
Yeah. Job was a timeless book right there, boy. Yep, no doubt about it. It's still very relevant. No matter what happens in this world, Job's going to be relevant. I'll say the whole Bible's going to be. Job is definitely one of those kind of books. And really, Peter's point here is it's not so much on the cause of the trials. And if we were going to say, I think as we read through the book, and I've already told you all this, that their suffering is not going to be. It's not like governmental. It's not based on like they're not being persecuted by the government. They're not being thrown in the jails or whatever. Not at this point. I think, and I said this, that this is more likely just being coming from their peers, coming from their non-Christian neighbors and things like that, and the mockery that they're receiving and whatnot. That's what it sounds like to me. But you can really gonna pick that up when we get through the whole book. But which I encourage you to read, by the way. Don't just read one chapter. You should be reading through the whole book. You should read the whole book every week, and then you're really gonna start picking up on a lot of the things that you're gonna be like, I already knew that. I already knew that, so because I've been reading. But his point is not really the cause of the trials, it's the result of the trials. Maybe that's really what he's wanting these Christians to pick up on and make sure they remember this, because, the sufferings they can cause you to start doubting some things. And so remember, the result is that praise and honor and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. If any verse resonates with us, it ought to be verse 8, I would say. Though whom having not seen, you love. Now we can relate to those Christians because we haven't seen Jesus Christ, not in the flesh. Peter did, but apparently not them, and he knew it. And I know that you haven't seen Jesus Christ in the flesh. I haven't. But we would at least, I know you would say that you love him. Whom having not seen, you love. Well, that takes a good bit of faith. And it's not blind faith. I think the gospel, in the way that it was, this is what this means. The gospel was presented preached to them, and showed to them, and taught to them in such a way that when they read the letters for themselves, and when they sat down and they meditated, and they considered on the things that was being taught to them, the truths that was being taught to them, and they kind of put things to the test, maybe even, which is, I think, is something we should do. That's Acts 11, right? The Bereans, or no, 17. Acts 17:11. When they searched the scriptures daily, they heard Paul preaching in the synagogue, and they searched the scriptures daily to find out whether these things were so. Well, they were kind of putting it to the test, what he was saying to the test. And so these Christians, when it was given to them in such a way, the truth of the gospel was, and after they've done all that, they put it to the test. It produced the kind of belief, and it produced the kind of love that is on par with the belief that people had who were in the very presence of Jesus Christ himself. And to me, that's an amazing thought. That you can believe and love Christ as if you were at the foot of the cross. And I like that thought. Over in Galatians, Paul preaches the same way as Peter did. And I'm not saying that maybe Peter did convert these people he's writing to, but surely Peter was quite the preacher. But then Galatians 3:1, he says, "Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? Before whose eyes Jesus Christ was clearly portrayed among you as crucified." It had been presented to them in such a way where there's no way they could deny it. That, yep, that was the truth. Jesus is the Son of God. He died for our sins. He died on the cross, and he rose on the third day, according to the scriptures. There's no way you could deny it. That's how clearly it was presented. And of course, that's a message for us today, especially me, or anyone who would stand behind a pulpit. You got to present it in such a way where it's going to be clear and people can pick up what you're putting down, kind of thing, and don't muddy the water. People need to understand the gospel. And when we go out and we talk to people, we reason with people, we use common sense. Like, we can't forget that. And we present it in such a way, the truth in such a way where they're like, yeah, I can't deny it. I might deny it, but I really can't deny it up here. But I like that. Let me give you one more verse, and then we'll stop. Is it the one I want? Oh, yeah. John 20, verse 29. This is where Thomas is like, I ain't going to believe unless I touch, unless I feel whatever. And Thomas says, my Lord and my God, verse 28. He's a believer now. And Thomas says, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. And boom, we go just a few years later, somewhat years later, to Peter, and there they are. There's people who are believing, have not seen Jesus in the flesh like Thomas did. And Jesus says, oh, they are blessed. And so are we. So are you, if you believe. All right. We'll pick up with verse 10. How about it? Next time we meet. Or just whatever verse you guys want. Okay. I'll let you guys decide.